Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Hope you guys are having a good day today. Looking forward to talking to this reoccurring guest. The last time I had Tate on, we talked about his hunt. He had a really, if you haven't heard it, you got to go back and check it out. And I think it's timely to go check that out now because opening day of deer season just started yesterday in Illinois and most places throughout the Midwest. So if you're thinking about getting out in the stand and want some inspiration to get out there, go listen to that previous episode with Tate Taylor. But I'm back with him today. Tate, how's it going, man?
Good, Jared. How are you?
Fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and start with prayer. It's what we always do, and then just want to get some life updates from you, and excited to hear about all the things going on. Well, let's pray.
Let's do it.
Father, we just thank you for this time. I thank you for a brother and a friend, and ask for blessing upon this conversation. A lot of great things have been happening in Tate's life. It seems like, and through his life and work in Ogden and with the guys there. And so we just ask for blessing on this conversation. And I pray that for those listening in, they'd be encouraged and built up, and the same kind of brotherhoods that they're experiencing there would be popping up all over the place. That this would be a work that's not just in places like Ogden, but also, God, what we're experiencing in a smaller scale and other people as well. God, I pray that you'd raise up men who love you, love their families, and just love the right things. Help us now in this discussion. I trust you will. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, brother. I think this is the maybe the third time I've had you on, I think. And
Yep, I think so.
I'd love just to hear the update. So last time we talked, it was, I think, in the beginning stages of you thinking about moving up to Ogden, but now you're there. So what was that transition like? How did you guys end up pulling the trigger and ended up in Ogden?
Yeah, that's it's a pretty providential situation. If people haven't heard the previous podcast, I'm from East Texas, grew up there, lived there most of my life. All my family's from there, my wife's family's from there as well. And we lived on family land. Was a piece of property that we were never going to just put on the market and sell. And we kind of hit that point in our lives where we were like, I don't think the things that we're wanting to try, some of the things that you just mentioned in your prayer, actually, some of this brotherhood stuff, I don't think it's gonna come to fruition here, at least not anytime soon. And really loved Ogden. I had been to the first conference that the
Okay.
guys here had and really enjoyed it. And also, my wife and I had lived in the mountains for a little bit towards the beginning of our marriage, so we did kind of want to get back to the mountains, get out of that Texas heat a little bit. And basically, what happened was over the course of about a week, we went from, I guess we're just going to be in East Texas for the next, 6 to 10 years till we figure this out, to finding out that my aunt and uncle were wanting to move back to the area to be close to my grandparents. And they
Okay.
were looking for basically the exact property that we had. And so, anyways, went and had lunch with them, talked to them about it. I think 2 nights later, we had a contract.
Oh, wow.
And so my aunt and uncle bought our place, stayed in the family. So we didn't have to sell it to anyone who was outside the family. And then also they're great people. They're going to take care of it and do a good job with it. They've already done a bunch of stuff to it that we didn't have the budget to do. So they're doing good stuff with it, and happy to have them buy our place. And yeah, it freed us up to get our equity out and move to Ogden. So
Nice.
I think it was 2.5, 3 months later, we were moving to Ogden. So it's
Wow.
really quick, quick. Almost a year and a half now, I guess. Year, a little over a year. So
Okay.
we got here in May, at the end of May last year. So
Okay. If I remember right, you built that house. Is that correct?
yeah, yeah, we
Okay.
built that. We built that house. So built a house and a shop and all that good stuff.
So what was it like moving from having some elbow room on your property into the bowl, into the valley of where you're at, where there's a house I visited one time and they were talking about pastures and fields. And I was looking around looking for these pastures and fields they're talking about, and it's like a yard with 10 cows on it or something like that.
Yeah,
So how's that been, that transition moving from a place that you had some room to move into, where you're at now, which I'm assuming you don't have property and acreage or anything like that. I guess it's just a part of the process of moving. You just get used to it. How's that been?
yeah, it's something that my wife and I actually were pretty concerned about moving. It was one of the only things that we had some big reservations about. We were obviously moving and leaving a bunch of family, which was a big deal. But the other thing was that we were moving from 10 acres that was connected to my grandparents' 70. They leased another 150, I think. So all of this property is right there. There's nothing on it but our two homes. You could sit on our front porch and not hear road noise. I mean, we were kind of in the middle of nowhere. And here, that is very much not the case. So
Hmm.
we were pretty concerned about that. But Ogden's an interesting city. It's not super metropolitan. It's pretty it's pretty similar to just a decent sized town that just kept sprawling.
Okay.
It's a lot of neighborhoods that are residential and pretty normal. We don't have a bunch of high rises or anything like that. There's a small downtown area, but nothing crazy. When we thought of a city, we thought of the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex,
Right.
which is
Right. Ginormous.
concrete. Yeah, it's just and it just goes forever. This is a little different because the city runs right up to the mountains. And so you go from, residential neighborhood to a 10,000-foot peak in a handful of miles. And
Hmm.
so that part's pretty cool. It's an interesting dynamic. You can drive from our place right now 30 minutes and be way out in the country in the mountains, and there genuinely is some country stuff, some pastures and fields and things like that. But yeah, right here in Ogden, it's pretty. I mean, it's a city. So
Right, right. So there's a lot of people that were in your situation where they're praying through and thinking about moving to a church family, moving to a different city. I'm in Illinois, which is the prime spot in the United States for people like myself to move out of, especially if you're in the
hmm
northern part of Illinois. We're in the good part, in the southern part, the real southern Illinois here. And it's not quite Dixie, but it's close. And so for you then, how long did it take after you moved there to realize, you know what, this is awesome. It's the right decision. I'm really glad we did this.
it was pretty much immediate for us.
Nice.
A lot of people have asked us how often we get homesick, if we have any regrets, that kind of thing. And we really don't very often get homesick. We obviously miss family a lot, and it's difficult to have our parents be away from their grandkids. That part's
Hmm.
difficult for sure. But as far as just missing the place, it really doesn't come up very much. We're so
Yeah.
busy here. There's so much going on. The community is, rolling at a crazy pace, and so there's something to do all the time. And I guess there's some value in that kind of distraction.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, we love it here.
Good.
Zero regrets.
Good. So you get there and already you got this group of guys there that are doing some great things, moving forward, building together and all of that. So where do you jump in? How do you jump in? And it seems like just from following social media and just being on Instagram and seeing the things that are going on, I mean, it seemed like pretty quick. You got a group working out together. You're doing your ultras and training for that. Then you bust your Achilles, I guess, or knee or something like that.
hmm
But we'll get to that here in a little bit. But explain that process because guys are wanting to build community and friendships like that. So it seems pretty organic, where it's just like dudes that enjoy hanging out. So we're going to do stuff together. Is that how it was, or was there kind of a formality of a process for you of saying, here's the map of what I want to try to get involved in, what I want to try to do? Obviously, you're wanting to step in and be humble when you're in a new place and just do whatever you can. But for you, what was that like then integrating in with a community that already existed?
I think so. I'll kind of preface with, if you're coming from a place where you sort of just woke up to a bunch of these convictions, this is something that you decided you wanted, and you would rather be in this Christian community, you would rather have this brotherhood, all of those things, but you haven't yet tried any of that where you're at. Um, it's going to be more difficult for you to appreciate the shift, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Hopefully, things go well where you're at, and you can actually get some momentum going and start building some kind of burrow where you are. I think that was really important for us, though. We had exhausted a lot of options where we were. We had tried a lot of things. It wasn't an overnight, like, oh, these guys have a podcast, let's just move there.
Hmm.
Um,
Right.
we had been listening and then trying to practically implement a bunch of those things where we were for 2+ years. And, it was just kind of really just kind of failure after failure after failure. It's not like there was no fruit in any of the things we did, but as far as like long term sustainability, they just weren't really going anywhere. And so, coming here, we didn't have any of those second thoughts of well, what if we had stayed?
Hmm. Right.
Could we have done this where we were? We had tried it. And so when we got here and we were able to take all of that effort and put it into something that was already moving with some momentum, it was just a fresh gust of wind, like it was just great. And so for me, getting here, it was the first Sunday I started asking guys, introduced myself, started asking guys if there was a gym that anyone was using, where does everybody work out? You can tell from the congregation pretty quickly here, people are in decent shape.
Hmm.
And so the assumption is somebody's lifting some weights somewhere, running or rucking or something.
Right.
And so I started asking around, found out that one of the guys here who already owns several properties, it's actually Jace Reineveld who owns Alpine Gold, and he's involved in all kinds of stuff. But he has a residential building that basically has a big storage closet in the back of it that was
Okay.
used as a gym. That's how he got 1,000 irons in the fire, and that's just something that he thought would be cool. And but no one had really grabbed it and gone like, this is my thing. And
Hmm.
so it just kind of worked out perfect where I didn't walk in and was like, hey, I'm gonna run this now. It was more like,
I've
hey, I would
arrived,
love to
folks.
come and hang out. Yeah, exactly. That wasn't the message, but yeah, after a couple months of going and just working out with the group that was already there, gaining a little bit of respect and kind of proving that I, had done some of this stuff before what I was talking about. Pretty quickly he was like, yeah, it'd be great if you wanted to do some Saturday morning stuff. I've had a hard time getting guys really interested in being up here, and made a good group of buddies pretty quickly, and
Awesome.
yeah, convinced them to start coming and working out with us. So I was just doing that for no money, just like I wasn't being paid at all for the first goodness 8 or 9 months that we were
Okay.
doing it. And then just in April, worked out a deal with Jace where I rent that space from him, brought some of my own equipment in, and now we have, an actual profiting, functioning small business that runs through there. And it's mainly for people here at Refuge. So we have ladies' hours, we have men's hours, and we've got, a dozen plus people that are using this tiny little 240 square foot gym space.
Nice.
Um, but it keeps us out of Globo gyms. People are not, giving their money to people that hate them and are
That's
actively
good.
working against them. And then also you don't have to deal with all of the other stuff that comes along with that, dress
Yeah.
code and all of those things. So,
Man, that's good. I like the ladies' hours, men hours. I was
mhm.
going to Planet Satan for a while, and it's cheap, and I'm getting some workouts done there. And I ended up stopping going, obviously, but I was doing these shoulder presses one day, and just it was a machine, it's Planet Satan, so it's got a ton of machines, and I'm doing my workout here, and this girl was right over here to the left, and she was doing these pelvic thrusts right in front of me. And I was having to work out with my eyes closed. And so I just had my eyes closed and then just was doing my workout. So it was great to get out of that space. But that's pretty cool that you guys have the ladies' hours and the men's hours. Props to you on that. That's good. Um,
Yeah, I appreciate it.
yeah. So for work, I'm curious what you've been doing for work because you leave your work. I don't even know what you were doing before, but then you move up there, and I know the cost of living in places like that is extremely high. So what'd you do to get up there and actually survive and get food on the table?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it is expensive to live here. It's not a cheap place to live. It's not a cheap place to buy a home. It was kind of a unique situation for us. We had built our house in East Texas right at the kickoff of COVID is when we moved in. So we started it late 2019, finished it early 2020, moved in I think in February of
Okay.
2020. So cost to build at that point was significantly lower.
Yeah.
Interest rates were way better. And so 4 years, 5 years into owning that house, we had a significant amount of equity built up just because property prices had
Oh yeah.
gone up so much. So my aunt and uncle bought it for basically double what we built it for,
That's
and
great.
they got a really good deal on it. So we have we have for the most part, been living off savings. I've tried a few different things. The gym helps, but really the most solid thing has been starting with New Christendom here, just in the last handful of months.
Okay,
So that's
cool.
kind of the main source of income. But I will say, if you've been paying attention to gold or Bitcoin, whatever you want to kind of go with and do more research on, we bought gold when we moved here, and yeah, there's been numerous times when I've gone to that account and withdrawn money, and then a month later went to withdraw more, and it doesn't look like I withdrew money from the
Yeah,
previous month.
that's good.
So that's been a huge blessing. Just the timing of all of that has been, yeah, just providence. No,
Very cool.
no deep insight of my own or anything. I'm not some, great investor or anything, but
Yeah, so you're not
um,
taking clients right now.
so I have some.
Investing clients, I mean.
No, I don't have any investing clients. If you want to learn how to back squat better or something like that, I can
That's
I can help you out with that. But
that's your thing. You know, it's wild. In 2016, we built our home and I bought the land, did all the infrastructure, septic, uh, road, electric, water, built the home. I was in it for $160,000.
yeah,
And that's 1,500 square feet basement, 1,500 square foot upstairs. And now I'm going to do an addition on the back of my home. I'm going to put a dining room and it's going to have a little bit bigger pantry for Jordan, and then I'll have a gun and bow room in it as well. Got another wood stove I'm going to put in that back area, but it's going to be about 700 square feet, and I'm thinking it's going to be 60 to because my uncle's going to build it for me, and I'm going to be helping him out, and it's still going to cost I think 60 to 70 grand,
yeah,
and just for one room, and it's crazy the difference in material cost from just 8 years ago, 9 years ago to today, but
yeah.
yeah, it's a different world, man, just in a few years. So, all right. So you bust your Achilles. Tell us about that and your process, because the ultra thing. I love followed Goggins for years and just read his books, and then I appreciate Cam Hanes and just a little bit follow the ultra scene. I think I could maybe. I've done like 10 Tough Mudders, and those are super easy. You just go out and hang out with buddies. They're just not hard, and I think I could maybe build up. I've never done a marathon, even just a marathon, but it's intriguing. I love it. At some point in my life, I'd love to do something like that. But you've done that. You bust your Achilles. That's a bummer for anybody that's training, working out, or anything like that. But I've heard some bits and pieces about your story there. You didn't let it stop you from doing what you can or what you could. But tell us how you blew that up and what the process was to kind of get back where you are today.
Yeah, it's I wish it was a better story. It's really not. It's really not a great story. It's not all that interesting, but I actually finished my fourth 100K trail race in January. The toughest one I've done. It was a different course. It was miserable. Anyways, a whole different story, but did
Uphill, a lot
that
of uphill. What was it?
a ton of elevation gain. What happened was we were scheduled to be on the same course that I've done it the last 3 years. Weather moved in. I think it was State Park Service or whatever it was. Anyways, someone was like, "Hey, you guys aren't going to be able to run in this trail." So
Okay.
race organizers had to move it basically week of, and didn't have another 100K trail set up, and so they ended up just cutting like a path through
Oh
the
man.
woods in Central Texas. So it wasn't really a trail. It was just sort of a lane cut through, cedar scrub brush.
Oh
And
man.
it was miserable. It was the highest attrition rate they've had at that race since I've been doing it.
Okay.
It took me way too long. I was hypothermic and hallucinating at the end of it. It was
That's
rough.
good stuff.
Um, and don't hurt myself. Like I'm physically for the most part fine after that. And then we actually went to the Right Response conference in, I guess this was April, beginning of April, whenever that was, and had talked to Wes and Joel, and they were like, "Yeah, you guys can set up some workouts and run some workouts while we're here," because we had already announced we were going to do the New Christendom Games at our
Hmm.
conference, and they were like, "Hey, it'd be cool if we could do some sort of physicality for this conference," and I'd be you guys kind of run that, and
Okay.
anyways. We did a workout Friday morning. We had a hike scheduled for Saturday morning. Massive thunderstorm in Central Texas. We didn't want to have guys bringing their 8-year-old boys out there and, thunder and lightning and all the stuff. So we decided to go back to the gym that we worked out the previous day. And in the last like 30 or 40 seconds of a team workout, we were doing box step ups. And I was sort of doing rebounding box step ups where you have both feet on top of the box and you're just reaching back with one foot at a time and kind of
Okay.
rebounding back up. And suddenly felt like something, hit me in the back of the leg. Wasn't sure what happened. And I kind of was looking around for a second to try to figure it out. And then I could just feel my ankles just kind of
Hanging there.
dead fish limp, and kind of sat down, waited for everybody to finish the workout. And then we did a couple, YouTube searches, like how can you figure out if this is a completely torn Achilles, and figured out pretty quick. That's what it was. Thankfully it wasn't super painful. So I went and got some crutches and a boot and was able to, kind of hang out for the rest of the weekend. Got home, went to the doctor, I don't know, 3 or 4 days later, and got it x-rayed, and he's like, yeah, it's completely torn. So
Man.
just, I mean, unweighted, goofy, like done way dumber stuff, and never had any issues, and then tore my Achilles. So since then, I actually have a good buddy who was there with me, and within 20 minutes, he's like, so I guess we're going for a 4-plate bench. Like, like, what's the
On to the
plan?
next thing. Yeah.
Yeah, so immediately kind of adjusted and been doing a whole bunch of upper body stuff for the past 6 months now. So
Okay. So where
I'm
are you
about
at in the
6 months
recovery
out.
process then?
I'm pretty close to being back to normal. I'm running again, doing walking lunges. I haven't been doing a ton of really heavy barbell leg stuff. Hadn't been a ton of deadlifts or back squat or anything, but I've touched a decent amount of weight on both of those recently just to see where things are at, and
Hmm.
honestly, have been really pleased with how little strength I've lost over the course of it. I've got some pretty major atrophy in my right calf from it not
Hmm.
being used for half a year, but for the most part, feeling pretty good. I should be back close to 100% by Christmas, I think.
Nice, nice. Now, if you want to make that story a little bit better, there was a fire, you ran in and saved your children, and then you grabbed your wife who had some smoke inhalation, and then you grabbed her and jumped out the second floor, and when you landed on the ground, you busted your Achilles.
Or
So
my
there's,
Achilles, yeah.
yeah, there's your story.
I would have a hard time corroborating that one, but yeah, it would be a lot cooler. But yeah, hit a 30-pound bench PR since then, so that's cool.
There you go, man. That's great. All right. So Eric laid the groundwork, did several years of the Hardman podcast. It was great, is a great show and tons of good content there. And then you'd been on a couple times, and then all of a sudden there's a new host, and these two guys are here now talking on the Hardman podcast. I just didn't finish the last episode, but I saw that you'd talk through, just tell us about yourself kind of stuff. Um, but what was that process like for you? And then what's the plan with the Hardman podcast? Continuing in the same vein that you guys that Eric set? You got plans going forward? Where's it coming? Where's it going?
Yeah, really cool to get to kind of take that over. Been a fan of it for a while. It's really cool. We actually talked about this in that episode you just mentioned, but I really got introduced to this entire world of the new Christian right, Christendom, post mill theology, a bunch of things through Hardman initially. A buddy of my father's actually sent him Eric, I think before Eric was even in Ogden, talking on Hardman, and was like, "Hey, I think you guys would like this." Started listening to it, then found all the rest of the stuff. Doug Wilson, I mean, like all these guys that also are talking about the same things. But Hardman was the actual like first foot in the door for us, which was really cool to kind of come full circle and then be hosting it now.
Hmm.
But got here. I had already talked to Eric a good bit. We had messaged back and forth online. Obviously, came to the first conference, got to hang out with him there, and I had done a podcast with my dad, and my brother-in-law, back in Texas. So I think we did like 48 or 50 episodes of that. So I had a little bit of experience, sort of writing, hosting, producing at least a show that a handful of people enjoyed. And Eric knew that, brought me on the podcast a handful of times and was like, "Hey, why don't you just write the cold open for this? Like, what are we talking about? Sort of let me
Mm-hmm.
kind of do some of the governing of how we wanted to do it. Basically, because he just doesn't have the bandwidth to continue to do all of the different things that he's doing. I think he's got multiple books in the works right now. Obviously, he does most of the writing and hosts King's Hall. He's pastoring. He's the CEO of New Christian Press. There's just a lot on his plate. So
Mm-hmm.
Hardman had kind of fallen to the rear and hadn't been very consistent for a while. And Pastor Ethan Sin and I hit things off when we first got here. He and I are really good buddies. I can't remember exactly how that got started, but he and I just kind of clicked pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And similar guys, similar interests, different areas of expertise in a lot of ways, but we mesh really well. And so we kind of went, hey, I think we could probably take that over. And Eric was like, that would be great, actually,
Very
because I
cool.
don't want the project to die. He's obviously still very, very attached to it, proud of it, but he just doesn't have the time to put into it. And so we've kind of taken the mantle. And then as far as direction goes, the way that we're sort of thinking about this is that Eric has laid a theological and sort of theoretical groundwork
Okay.
through the first however many episodes that he did with Hardman. But from here, we want to kind of transition as we take things over into more practical stuff. There are a ton of voices that are talking to guys on the right
Mm-hmm.
now about hunting and fitness and tactical stuff, all the things that we're interested in and enjoy doing. But they're not necessarily coming from a Christian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not the Christian perspective that we would hope that they would come from.
Right.
And so that's kind of the goal with it, is to move a lot more into those practical areas, hopefully open the funnel up a little bit, widen the gates, and invite some of those guys that are into those things and are starting to pay a little more attention to politics and religion,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of hopefully go, hey, this is the vein that you should be in,
Mm-hmm.
and here's why. These things are actually all connected. And so that's kind of the mission with it going
Good.
forward. Obviously, we'll still be doing a bunch of the things that we've been doing, everything from biohacking type stuff, DHT and dopamine levels, to everyday carry. And there's an elk hunt coming up. We're taking boys elk hunting up in the high Uintas next week. So I'm sure we'll do some reviews on stuff like that. But yeah.
Very cool. Man, I'm excited about the direction and everything you guys have going on. I'd like to transition a little bit and then just close out our conversation talking about this. So, been thinking about rites of passage for a very long time, raising sons and walking with our guys here at the church through all that. And I've been recognizing what you guys, it seems like you've got some weekends that you're taking out the boys and you're doing some very intentional things. I'd like to hear what you've got going on with that. And I forget what it's called. It looked like you guys had named it or tagged it with something. And tell us about that, what you're doing intentionally raising those boys out in the wilderness.
Yeah, so there's kind of different levels to this. The entire program is called Titus 2. And so we have, older women teaching younger, older men teaching younger. And Ethan actually, him and his wife kind of head that up. They actually started that, I think, right before we moved here. So that was something that was already going on. And what it was doing at the time was assigning a book, a reading, or some sort of homework for each month. And then there was going to be a practical teaching on that book or piece of information at the end of each month. So they would take a Friday and do something like all the boys are changing oil in cars, and like any
Hmm.
any member that wants to bring their vehicle up, at lunch on Friday, boys are going to be changing oil. Because they need to know how to do this. They need to know how to check spark plugs and things like that. So that's, one month. Another month they're doing carpentry. On the ladies' side, they did a formal dinner, and the girls, under supervision, prepared the meal for everyone, and then they went through good etiquette for table manners and eating at a nice restaurant and that kind of thing. So all of those just training things, like how do we take boys and turn them into men? How do we take girls and then turn them into ladies and women? And so that's kind of the idea of the whole program. Once I got here and Ethan and I became friends, he kind of threw out there, like, what do you think about maybe just doing a lifting program with the boys as part of Titus 2?
Okay.
And so then we started that last fall, I think. And so we've been going at that for a while. The boys lift with me 3 days a week. One of the months each year is centered on physicality and being healthy. And so I kind of teach and run that. We do an hour with the boys, hour with the girls. We talk about nutrition, then we talk about sort of strength and endurance and fitness and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And so then to kind of build on top of that, what we've been doing is just started this year, but in the spring we did a field training exercise with all the boys.
Okay.
So we took them out into the high Uintas. They camped for 3 nights, and basically they are on similar to a military training exercise. And so Ethan is former Air Force. We've got a bunch of guys actually that are former military.
Okay.
Um, one of my good buddies was in the Army for a decade. We've got guys who are in the Marines. There's a whole host of guys, but basically we have guys volunteer from the church. They go out and lead their own specific troops. So we had one guy or one adult to 4 boys this spring, and I think we had 8 or a dozen. I can't remember. But anyways, we have multiple teams, and they have different objectives based on whatever we're doing. But we're doing everything from digging foxholes and setting up points of entry to them laying on the ground, and they just have a ranger poncho and they're sleeping on the ground all weekend,
Awesome.
to fire starting. Everybody had to start his own fire with a ferro rod. Anything that you can think of.
Yeah.
Manual of arms with multiple different weapons, pistols, rifles. Doing lots of land nav, them figuring out how to read a map and then plot a course to another point and go find it. But it's all sort of being taught and supervised by guys who have done this professionally. And so we're all learning at the same time, but it's sort of calling them up and going, hey, you guys aren't just going to, graduate from St. Brennan's and then, or homeschool or whatever you're doing, and then just go get a job or,
Yeah.
a 4 year degree, whatever it is you happen to do. Like, these are the basic skills and things that should mark us as men. If you're from here, if you're a part of our people, we want you to be excellent in a way that is different from the rest of the normal world. And not just like spiritually. Obviously
Hmm.
that's the case. And we're working on that on a weekly basis. But in every facet of what it means to be a man,
Hmm.
you should be excellent. And
Yeah.
so we're
That's
working on all
good.
of those things. And I think that probably will turn into a bit of a rite of passage, because you have to be a certain age before we take boys and go do it.
Hmm.
But it's the kind of thing where, we leave and come back from the weekend and they were miserable for most of it, but they can't wait to tell everybody how
Oh, I'm
miserable they were.
sure. Yeah.
It's great. I mean, the last morning we were there, the instructors took flashbangs and woke all the boys up at 4 a.m. with flashbangs, made them get all their stuff on, grab their rucks, and then they rucked, I think, about a half mile to an exfil point, their bug out point, and they had to get there in the dark. They had to do all the land navigation in the dark, and then they had to march back and then retake the camp. And so that was just part of the weekend. But that was, they're all miserable, and
Right.
the story, every time they tell it, gets more and more extreme. Well, they woke us up with flashbangs. Well, then actually he bounced a flashbang off of my sleeping bag, and then he threw a flashbang and it actually landed in my sleeping bag and went off inside, and it like blew up my, it just gets more and more ridiculous every time they
Right.
tell the story. But it's the kind of thing that we want them to remember. And yeah, I think that rite of passage thing, we don't have any super clear guidelines for exactly how we want that to look. And I think it'll probably boil down to family specific
Yeah.
examples.
Yeah. That's good.
Particular fathers going, hey, your name is Taylor. This is the Taylor family rite of passage for their boys.
Hmm.
Um, but in a general sense, from the leadership perspective of the church and the community, we do want the boys used to doing hard things and being
Hmm.
uncomfortable and still having to think and still having to operate within that space.
Very good. And it sounds like it, based on the stories that they're telling, sounds like they've loved it. I mean, it sounds like about the best weekend you could possibly think of. Being miserable with a group of buddies and waking up to a flashbang and then having to go navigate in the dark sounds like something I would love to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that sounds incredible. So they are responding well. I guess it goes, from a weekend like that, then they're telling their buddies, "You got to come next year. You got to come do this." And I'm
Yeah.
assuming they're responding like that.
It's great because they have to, we have form one, two, and three. And form three doesn't start until I think you're in the seventh grade. It's either
Okay.
seventh or eighth grade. But either way, you have all these kids who are in a pretty small community. There's not a crazy amount of them. And so their buddies, the 13s are buddies with the 10-year-olds, and there's a small age gap there, but they're still good friends. They see each other all the time. They hang out all the time, enjoy the same stuff. But the 10-year-old doesn't get to go on the trip, and the 13-year-old does. And
Okay.
the 13-year-old comes back and is like, dude,
Yeah.
just wait until you get to go.
Awesome,
And then
man. That's cool.
they just, hype it up to their buddies, which is great. But yeah, I mean, to give an example, we got back and I think it was on a Saturday evening. We got back, all the parents come pick them up. And then Monday morning, they're back, full tilt. We're back at school.
Hmm.
And then we're lifting after school on Monday, and the buzz is just palpable. You can just
That's
feel the energy. They're so revved up, and they're so much more keyed into why we're doing the things that we're doing on a daily basis.
okay.
Yeah, you need to be strong. You need to be in good shape. You need to be able to, think and breathe at the same time.
Hmm.
And yeah, to see those lessons kind of hit home out in an isolated environment. They're away from their families. They're away from, the normal amenities that they're used to, and see those lessons start to set in is really cool.
That is super cool. Man, that's a lot of fun stuff. Well, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for the life update. It's been pretty cool to hear how things are going and to see how it's been a good transition for you. I'm sure as you guys have been blessed by the people there, I'm sure they've been blessed by you and your family being there as well. But I'm thankful for you, brother. It's cool to see what's going on and see God working in your life. And it's great to see the spiritual side and then the physical side as well, and combining those two of wanting young men to grow up with competencies and skills and in a framework to be able to handle difficult things, but also loving the Lord and walking with the Lord and humbly walking before God and others and being those kinds of men that have the spiritual competencies and those physical competencies as well. It's just great stuff. So if you guys have enjoyed this conversation, go to the Hardman podcast. It's easy to find. Google it, find it. If you haven't been listening, you can check it out. Anything else we need to know of? Any other direction? Point us to New Christendom, whatever that we would need to know about.
Man, guys around here have been really into the brutal American thing recently.
Yeah, that's
That was
fun.
that was something that I kind of a buddy of mine, and actually he and I kind of came up with it. But that's the new paywall show for the Hardman Patreon. So all of our patrons get access to the brutal American show, which is behind the paywall, and we've been having a lot of fun with it. We recently did a everyday carry like pocket dump for the entire basement. Which was really cool, but lots of shooting content, hopefully some hunting stuff in the future, and trying to do some more video stuff for Hardman. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Good deal. Well, I appreciate it, guys. We've been talking to Tate Taylor. Tate, appreciate it, man.
Jared, thank you.